All right. Greetings, 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 everyone. Good people. Listen, I am doing something new and different for me. I'm going live on TikTok just for a little bit because I'm not trying to handle two devices at one time while going through what we're going to go through tonight. But then I'm also, as usual, live on YouTube, where I'm welcoming everyone here live and everyone to the replay. That we are here talking about going from ancestral wounds to our soul assignments, understanding those ancestral wounds and how they relate to our soul assignment. And this is day 2 or night 2 of our 5 nights of going live and learning and growing together, leading to that final September power portal on September 27th, on Saturday, when we'll actually culminate all of this in an online global ritual that I am calling the Great Unbinding, because it is time to unbind from the karmic debts, the karmic shit shows that we've been in, so that we can move forward, both individually and collectively. So, and the whole purpose is to, again, and I say again because I mentioned this yesterday, to confront the inheritance that we've all come here with, whether it's the inheritance of being a descendant from enslaved Africans, or the inheritance that white or non-Black women have of being a descendant from enslavers or colonizers. We talked about that yesterday, and we'll talk a little bit more about that today. This is really about unbinding the soul. And you see me, I'm going to be looking at my notes, whether you on YouTube or you on TikTok. I'm going to be looking at my notes because I am a perimenopausal auntie and I forget what the hell I'm saying in the middle of saying it. So I'm going to do what I got to do. Now, who am I? I am Barbara Ohuninifa, and I am an author. I'm an ancestral strategist. I'm a freaking survivor of trauma, and I am someone who has direct personal life experience with the 4 karmic archetypes that we're talking about over these next couple of days. Yesterday we talked about one. We're going to talk about another one today. But my books, From Fat, Black, and Unlovable to Beautiful, Powerful Love, as well as my activity book and journal for Black women called Remember Who the Fuck You Are. They're both available on my site, shop.beautifulpowerfullove, and you can learn more about me there. Or you can go to Amazon, they're there too, and get it. If you got some Amazon points you want to use, you can get it there. But that's who I am, and that's what my channel is about, Beautiful, Powerful Love. And I've talked about this before. My mission, my focus is to support and encourage and inspire Black women, but it's also on some levels about women as a whole, because women have been oppressed on this planet, not nearly to the degree and the continuation that my African ancestors have been oppressed, and we have been oppressed as Black women. But my ancestors require that I do some work for both, because as a descendant of enslaved Africans in this country, United States, I also have ancestral mothers who were European, who were the wild witches of Europe before we we all had to come into um, this construct of race, and they started calling themselves white, and we started calling ourselves Black, or we're called Black. But anyway, that's what I'm here about, and I'm here, and my channel is about that. So check it out. You'll learn more about me. I've been through lots and lots of things. We'll talk more about it as we go through. And I say that not to brag, like I've been through things, but literally taking my own pain and traumas and turning them into medicine for myself and for others. That's kind of my mission and my soul's assignment. So that's what we're talking about on this channel in general. So if that's your jive, that's your jam. Subscribe, like, comment, do all the things, both on TikTok and on YouTube. We're trying to grow. We're trying to get the information out there, and we're trying to bring people along, because we're at a point in time where everybody needs to stand in their own power and who they are, and come together in community as well. So it's not about power over each other, but power with each other. So again, these whole sessions have been about, and if y'all making comments on TikTok, I don't even have the skill set for that yet. Hop on over to YouTube, because eventually I'm gonna shut the TikTok down, because this is going to be too distracting. But I wanted to give y'all an opportunity to at least hear the beginning of it. So if you need to make comments, go on over to YouTube and make the comments because I don't even have it in me. All right. So we're talking about karmic archetypes. And when I look at the idea of karmic debts, and it's something that shows up in numerology very clearly. It shows up in astrology. It shows up, as I've mentioned before, in West African tradition of Ifa, in our Odus. It shows up in African American practices around in hoodoo. It shows up in almost every divination system that we can look at from different cultures around the world to understand that this ain't our first rodeo. This is not the first time our souls have been here. And in doing so, and in being in that way, and I'm hopefully everybody's hearing me well. Um, and in doing so, we are, humanity has been doing horrible shit to each other for centuries, if not millennia. And that has created karmic debt, both all for us individually, because we've done things individually. And, I have videos on YouTube where I go more in depth talking about what karma is, what karmic debts are, what karmic patterns are, those ancestral loops. And where I'm focusing on is the karmic archetypes, because as we go through these debts, it's not about punishment, it's about mastering something and learning something. So if you have a karmic debt, and it shows up in any of those places, it's not punishment. I had to work through that for years to understand I'm not being punished. There's not something I did wrong. It's about balance. The universe, spirit, God, whatever you want to call him, her, she, them, is about balance and learning and growing. So expansion and balance, and bringing things back to the center. And in order to do that, if we've gone too far in one type of behavior, reaction, action, thing, you're going to have to pay that debt until it comes back into balance. So yesterday we talked about the sacred builder, which is a wound of the soul around work. And we talked about ways that impacts Black women of doing too much and having to be the strong one, and how that has impacted white women as well. Because I'm looking at those two lenses in particular. One, because I cape for Black women all the time, and I'm a cape for white women if they are in alignment with who and they are truly are, and not beholden to patriarchy and white supremacy. But ultimately, it's all for the benefit of humanity. And I talk about these two groups in particular because the transatlantic slave trade, the global oppression of indigenous people, colonization, imperialization, all of that is some of, if not the most traumatic and ongoing karmic debt humanity has done and continues to do. So until we get and dig into that and resolve that and heal the fractures that have been caused by that, we are going to continue to have some issues. We are going to continue to find ourselves in situations like we are in now. And so I wanted to look at that and look at these karmic debts and our archetypes and what we're here to master and learn and help others with through the lens of myself as a Black woman, descended from enslaved Africans. And I also know 2 or 3 of the lineages of Europeans that were on the slave owner side. I don't know any of the overseers that did the things, but the ones who owned, I can at least track some of that. So I know that some of that blood is in me as well. And so as I look at ancestral veneration, of course, I focus on those ancestors that survived Jim Crow, that survived disenfranchisement, that survived enslavement here in the United States and colonization in Africa. But I recently have been hearing more and more from those really ancient, quote unquote, white, because they never saw themselves or called themselves white, but those really ancient women from the from Europe who were burned at the stake, who were ostracized for knowing too much, for being wise women, for being in touch with nature. So I am aware of those lineages within me as well, and they're starting to rise up in the last few years and say this is about the divine feminine and bringing back that energy that would create balance. Because for the last couple thousand years, it's been too much patriarchy. and I mentioned this yesterday, we use the words masculinity and patriarchy interchangeably, and it's couldn't be further from the truth. Sacred masculinity is a beautiful energy that is required, that's needed on this planet and in each individual person. Patriarchy is something else that is oppressive, that is based in fear, that is based on insecurity. So that's why I'm talking to Black and white women, or Black and non-Black women, because however you identify, we look at the racial construct, you know what I'm talking about. Descended from enslavers and colonizers, descendant from those who were enslaved. It is what it is, and that's what we're talking about. And so Sacred Builder, we talked about yesterday, was about recreating or creating new foundations, new structures, because we're seeing everything is getting ripped apart. Everything is getting exposed for the bullshit that it is. And it's going to be time very soon for us to build something different so that we don't end up in the same position that we've been in. And part of that is these four gates, these four archetypes that we've been talking through. Again, Sacred Builder was yesterday. And today we are going to talk about the Sacred Liberator. And then tomorrow, one that is very close and near and dear to my heart, the Sacred Redeemer. It's a tough one. It's a hard one. If you can't tell, it's one of my major karmic paths. It's the reason why I am doing this series. It's the reason why I have a course that I'm offering. It's the reason why I write my books. It is a requirement for me to be here. But I'll talk more about that tomorrow, because whew, we got a lot to talk about with that one. And then the final one that we'll talk about on Friday is the Sacred Leader. So each one of these has basically our karmic past. That means in a past life or in a past ancestral lineage, you lean too far to this way. I won't say left or right because it's not a political term, but you lean too far to this way, and it's time to balance things and coming back the other way. And again, today is about turning that ancestral trauma into sovereign joy. It's the Sacred Liberator. And it's about typically what Sacred Liberator, and if you follow numerology at all, it is typically looked at as the 14-5 karmic debt number. If that shows up anywhere in any of your numerology numbers, even if it doesn't show up there, it can come up as a essence cycle number. It can come up as a personal year number, personal month, personal day. It will find its way, because none of us escape these four gates, these four karmic paths, because humanity has been doing all the things all this time. And so with the how we typically look at this particular karmic debt around what I call it the Sacred Liberator, because it's not about the debt. That should be your school. That should be your learning, your lessons, and how you grow and master this thing. But it's about what role you came here to play. There's a reason you have the debt and you have the experiences that you have. It's because there's a role you have to play to help others, to help humanity. Everything is about humanity growing. And so 14-5 and the Sacred Liberator has been about this this fracture around being impulsive, of being exploiting others, of addiction and misused freedom. So the other, I was well, fucking, I'm gonna just say it. I have my own personal experiences with each one of these, and I have personal relationships with people who have each of the karmic debts that we'll be talking about, each of the karmic archetypes that we'll be talking about. So I've had a chance to look and see different ways that it plays out, and different ways that it can manifest itself, and how we can get through it and solve it and resolve it. So these misuse, freedom, addiction, exploitation, that's all true. But what I do is I try to ground it in culture and history, and our embodied liberation. Everything is around liberation for me. That's a part of the five. Um, that's embedded in me. It shows up in my case, not as a 14-5, but I've had a 14-5 personal year before. So I know what that feels like as well. But this idea of around liberation is something that's very near and dear to me, that I'm always going to cape for. And so Sacred Liberator is about teaching us to break chains, and to, whether those chains are chains of our colonizers, chains of racism, sexism, and all the other isms that seek to lock us into a little box that benefits the capitalist machine that we're all in. It's about breaking free from all of that, but not running away from responsibility, but breaking free and having this joyful, conscious co-created transformation with community. In order to do that, we have to be free. We have to know and feel free within ourselves. I'm just looking at I'm house sitting, and I have a cat that's being very inquisitive about things. So I'm like, "What you doing, girl?" She feels something going on. Let me tell y'all, I had to go to my ancestors before I came live, and they required quite a bit. And I think Kitty Cat is over there responding to them. But anyway, we're gonna keep it moving. So why does it all matter now? Y'all already know what's going on in the world. I mean, I hope you do, at least to the extent where you know how to keep yourself safe. We are in a time of huge transition. The world as we have known it will not continue to be as we go forward, which is why, again, this is so important for us to all know who we are and what we came here to do so that we can build something that doesn't repeat what we just came out of, what we're coming out of, what we're steeped in the lowest point of right now with the loss of civil rights and the stressors and the loss of safety nets, the loss of true societal community. And I say that like that, like we have to focus on our local and self-created communities, but the idea of an entire city or the nation of being a community, we're in a redo stage right now. And so one of the things I want to say is that we are going to set intentions for tonight of transforming our soul's relationship with movement, with desire, with joy, with liberation. I mean, to some extent with sensuality as well. We won't go too deep into that in this session tonight, but it's something that I address in the activity book that I mentioned, Remember Who the Fuck You Are. And it's something that I address within the course, Your Soul Knows the Assignment, because we are spiritual beings in physical bodies, which means we have all of these physical senses that want us to explore, that give us the ability to explore. And if we weren't here in physical form, if we didn't have a need for the bodies, we wouldn't be here in physical form. We wouldn't have the bodies that we have if part of our experiences did not include um, the physical manifestation of form, we wouldn't have one. And so it's important that as we go through this information, as we talk tonight, I want you to take periodic deep breaths. We're going to start off, I'm going to sprinkle a few in as we talk because I need them. I want you to have a glass of water or something nearby, preferably water, because water in and of itself has an energy, has a healing and a cooling property. In the West African tradition of Ifa, we talk about cool head, cool home, cool roads. Coolness is how we stay receptive and open to actually hear our soul, to actually understand what moves to make and what decisions to make. If you got a hot head and things are just heated up, your nervous system is inflamed, all of that is heat. So drinking cool water will help to cool your head, help to cool you so that you can receive the information that's relevant for you without being triggered, or if you're triggered, to bring it back. So deep breaths, cool water. If you can sit with your feet planted flat on the floor, that's great. Or you can stand sometimes. While we're talking, you can color, you can doodle, you can close your eyes and just listen. But the point is to take care of you, to take care of your body, to take care of your nervous system. Because we're talking about karmic paths, if it's something that is within your cellular memory, it will likely get activated in some way. And you need to have tools, at least these simple things, to bring yourself back into alignment, to allow yourself to be regulated. Regulated. Okay? Yes, yes. Can I see anything? I'm gonna take these glasses off because y'all, your girl got more surgeries coming up. Coming up. So more eye surgeries, all the things. I have a video on my YouTube channel where I talk about the big, huge healing lessons that I got with some of the other surgeries, open heart surgeries, kidney surgery, all these crazy rare things. But there's more to come, obviously, because your girl can't see worth a damn. So I had to take the glass off because they weren't helping. So let me see. Am I going to stick with TikTok a little longer? Hey, y'all. Hey. See me having to get on. I have no idea how to use any of this. If somebody want to give Auntie a TikTok live tutorial, I will gladly accept. But right now, I'll just keep it there because I'm not even able to respond to anybody anyway because I don't know how to do it. But I'll keep it there if y'all want to keep watching, and then we'll see what shall happen. So the main thing we're talking about tonight is 5 discussion points. You may have seen it in the description or in some of the posts that I made. So the first discussion point we're going to talk about today is why Black women often shrink their voice while white women avoid accountability. And again, this is another area where you want to take some deep breaths. You want to allow yourself to receive the information and not immediately be triggered or take it personal in either direction, whoever we're talking about. So, Black women, the reason why, or some of the reasons why we have this shrink our voice is that there's an ancestral blueprint within us, stolen freedom. We're being owned, trafficked, controlled, and silenced. Oftentimes, and I talk about this in my first book, um, being loud, getting noticed, having too much joy, laughing would get you targeted and could cost you or your family their lives or our lives. And so silencing yourself is a defense mechanism and is a way to save yourself to some extent. We got punished for movement, for desire, for being who we were. And so conforming was the way to survive in some way. And then this karmic pattern shows up as a fear of being too much, a fear of being too much, a of silencing of your truth, of self-sabotage when we are too visible or expansion is about to happen. You ever had that where as Black women, you about to really blow up and then you get sick, or you make some decision and take some action that will take you actually out of alignment. Self-sabotage is a real thing. And so the lesson here is to reclaim pleasure in your truth and movement as your divine blueprint, knowing that you are worthy and it is your birthright to have freedom, to have joy, to be able to ebb and flow the way your soul, your spirit, yourself needs and wants to. That's part of the mission there. So when I think about white women with this sacred liberator karmic archetype and the way it shows up in terms of avoiding accountability is that it's related to excess and exploitation and abuse of power for white women, for descendants of enslavers and colonizers. And it can point to legacies of ancestral lineages that took without consent, that relied on others' bodies or lands for pleasure, profit, or for conquest, to actually get the high of, oh, I own somebody, or I conquested this land, this part of the earth that was never yours, but somehow you feel like because you got there, then it's yours. That is um, an ongoing karmic debt and how that shows up in terms of avoiding accountability. And we see that happening now. People do not want to take accountability for what was done in the past and what is still being done now and what they benefit from based on what was done in the past. And the time for that is over. It is time for everyone to stand up and to realize who they are and how to move forward in that. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, let's see. And then the next one is, I would say if y'all have questions, let me know. I can't see any on TikTok. I don't see any questions on YouTube. If you got them, let me know. And so let's move on to the second one. The second discussion point is reparative freedom and what that looks like, and what it looks like for descendants of enslavers to give access to open doors. So freedom means reparative freedom, because that's what we're talking about. Sacred liberators means redistributing access, not just money, but actually land titles, gatekeeper roles, narrative power, and everyday social safety. And it's asking being a sacred liberator, having this karmic archetype for white women or non-Black women means risking your comfort and reputation so the descendants of enslaved can move freely and fully into the future. There were people who did it before. We gained freedom not only because we fought for it, which we absolutely did. Don't believe the lies that they've told you about we were comfortable in that. There were far more slave revolts than we will ever be able to research and find documentation for because they made sure that there were none. But we fought, but there were also white people who fought. There were abolitionists who fought, who hid um, so-called fugitive slaves. I say so-called because you running for your own freedom. You're not a fugitive. But anyway, there were those who supported, who helped. And when we look at that now, we need to understand what that is and how do we apply that now. White women, non-Black women need to understand how to do that now. They risked comfort and reputation in their own lives and livelihood back then. The way things are getting rolled back, is time to put the same thing on the line. So an example of that could be, in terms of opening doors and opening access, could be to give no strings attached grants to Black-led organizations, Black-led nonprofits, and community organizations, which, by the way, most Black-led, Black benefiting organizations are considered grassroots because they are not huge corporate conglomerates like, let's say, the U.S. Fund for UNICEF, bringing in multi-billions of dollars. It's its own industry. Most nonprofits that are doing work in our communities, by our communities, for our communities are small, grassroots, less than 10 people, mostly are uh, ran by the founder, and are ran by Black women. 80% of these grassroots nonprofit organizations that are in our communities, boots on the ground, doing the work, are ran by Black women. Give no strings attached grants to these women and let them do what they got to do. Let them do what they know needs to be done for our communities, because we know where the gaps are. And when we see a gap, we fill it. That's why all of these organizations are ran by Black women, 80% of them. Another thing that white women or non-Black women can do is challenge this protective whiteness. Use your social capital. Have conversations with your neighbors. Have conversations in schools and workplaces. Interrupt that comfort of that white fragility. Challenge people. Use your voice. And I said it yesterday, use them white women tears to benefit all of us. Use what you have, the privilege that you have, to open doors and to make it uncomfortable for the shit to continue the way it is. It's new and different for y'all. For many of y'all, I won't say everybody, but for many of y'all, but it's time to do that. Use some tools, deep breathe, drink some water. I mean, there's a lot more somatic tools that you can use to bring yourself back into your body. But it, I don't know what to tell you. Big girl panties, it's time to get it done. And then, really impactful thing that you can do, I think, in your workplace, speaking up against biased hiring, but in your families. Grandma don't get to say that racist shit anymore. Not if she want to still know her grandkids. Uncle Joe can't say that shit and do that same shit he did anymore. Not if he wants to actually be a part of the family or a part of your family. Be brave enough in your own communities, in the spaces where you are, amongst other white people, to do what needs to be done to stop this status quo, to end the status quo, to disrupt how things have been moving. And host some conversation, host some intergenerational conversation about your family's role in particular. Do some research. I'm talking to the white or non-Black women now. Do some research to be able to name those slave owners. Because see, y'all were on the other side. It's much easier for you to find records and research your ancestry than it is for us. Know who you come from and have some conversations about that shit now. With your kids, your grandkids, your mama and them, auntie and uncle. No one gets to hide from this reality anymore. If they're taking things out of school and taking things out of libraries, they can't take it out of your cellular memory. They can't take it out of our cellular memory. It is there. Have the conversation, do the work. Yes, yes. Yes, yes. That is a way that we can move towards reparative freedom and joy, using what you have and where you are to go there. All right. The other thing I want to talk about, the third point, is basically both lineages can release inherited shame, whether it's from oppression or exploitation. For Black women being oppressed, and for white women being both oppressed and exploited. So we're here talking about sacred liberators, what it means for Black women and non-Black or white women to really walk those roles of being, or the role of being a sacred liberator, to look at the karma, the karmic debts, the lessons, the wounds, the ancestral patterns that are repeating, and understand how to change that, how to work on that going forward. And so for Black women, that can mean reflecting on that ancestral trauma of being over sexualized. And I pause because that is such a deep experience that we've had. I taught a course called Ancestral Healing, Sensual Ancestral Healing. And it was in person, and it was filled with women and femmes of different ethnicities, but all women of color, whether, the full gamut of women of color. And everyone had some story about what they had learned about their bodies, their sensuality, their sexuality from the women in their family, but it was all from a perspective of keeping them safe. It wasn't about being able to explore or being in love with your body or appreciating all the different things of your body. It was about locking things down to keep you out of harm's way, because apparently a bear is safer than a man and has been for centuries. So it's sad when we as Black women are over sexualized, even when we're just naturally being who we are and it's being over sexualized or hyper policed or punished, or just punished for existing outside of the patriarchal norm. And don't let you speak up. We see it happening now with Stace. I'm gonna just say their first names because I'm blanking on last names, but we know Jasmine, we know Stacy, we know Letitia. Shoot, we know Kamala have been targeted because they're pushing back against the patriarchy, against white men domination. So having that oppression experience can show up as hyper independence, can show up as emotional suppression and rebellion, or suppression of rebellion, or the type of rebellion that actually harms yourself. Think about that in terms of various addictions. Like I used to smoke clove cigarettes. That shit was so stressful. Living was so stressful. The there's a lot of other addictions. I mean, shoot, food. All of those things can be ways to deal with that inflamed nervous system that gets activated whenever we um, feel that inherited shame around oppression. And it's not about suppressing the shame, but it's about leaning into sovereignty, to know that it is your birthright to have joy, to have freedom. Now, how you do that, that's a whole other thing. But I will say it starts bit by bit, and it's not easy, but it starts bit by bit. And that's, again, some of the things that we talk about in the course. Now, white women, in terms of releasing the inherited shame, releasing that shame of being both oppressed and exploited, because I've talked about this in some of my videos, mostly on TikTok. I think I might have it on YouTube as well. But this idea of being both white women have benefited from racial oppression, but they also have been oppressed by gender oppression. So they kind of traded having that freedom, because what they were able to receive with their husbands and their families and keeping that alive has been more beneficial than risking it. At least it has been up until now. Now is not the time. And it's time to break those cycles. And, it's really, it carries that memory of witch hunts It carries that memory of sexual repression. I mean, many of us were taught, and the same, if not even more so, is true of white women, that your sexuality exists for the pleasure of men, or your sexuality exists for the purpose of procreation. To release that and release the trauma of forced marriages as children. Women, I can't even call them women. If you like 12, 13 years old, that's not woman. And somehow people thought that was okay and still think it's okay. And the whole colonization of womb wisdom and that loss of your own bodily autonomy. The same thing has happened to us as Black women, much more harshly, but there's an element that happens to white women as well. That's still playing out in how they think and behave and move through the world. That has to be released. And it's time to break those cycles of codependency and the acceptable femininity. That's why every time I talk about it, I do like this, because that's kind of, oh my gosh, I am such a weak woman. I cannot, I need hope. Let that shit the fuck go. I'm just saying. The soul is called to liberate the feminine voice. The divine feminine says she cannot be suppressed any longer. She cannot be silenced any longer. She will not lose any more of her children on this planet, because the divine feminine, that's everybody's mama. Everybody's mama. And so that idea of liberating the voice and the body so that we can have lives and community where truth and pleasure can be the norm, and not pleasure for one group at the expense and torture of another group. It's a basic right of humanity, and we're thankful for that. So I just want to check in and make sure folks can hear me well. I don't even know where to see that on TikTok, but we're gonna see it on YouTube. Hopefully everything's all good. So with that, and thinking about again these wounds that Black women and white women have been experiencing, and I am not comparing the two. I have to keep saying that because there are a lot of white women who will say, well, we did this too, and try to center themselves. This is not the space and the place for that. What I am acknowledging is that women as a whole, including white women, have been oppressed. Black women have been oppressed racially and genderly. Black people have been oppressed and continue to be oppressed. White women, although have been oppressed, have benefited from the racial oppression of others in general as a whole. So when we think about that, and how do we bring that into balance with white women being um, suppressed in terms of their sensuality, and straight up witch hunts. They came for us with witch hunts too, but they definitely came for y'all as well. And then for Black women being over sexualized. So white women being this Puritan, your sexuality exists for the pleasure of men and for procreation. And for Black women just being over sexualized, even as children being over sexualized. There's a balance that needs to be brought together. Now, that's something that Black women have to work on and white women have to work on. And once we do that, and understanding our soul's purpose and why this particular karmic debt, why the Sacred Liberator, that's something that we unpack in my course. So I just want to talk a little bit about that before we move on with the final two talking points for today. Now, Your Soul Knows the Assignment, that's my course. It is 6 weeks of a trauma-informed journey. If you can't tell, everything that I do, I understand the whole concept of karma is related to trauma. You can't start working through your karmic wounds and lessons without taking the steps to be gentle enough to, yes, be brave, but also to not cause more harm as we're going through the information and as we're learning and unpacking things that are buried within our own cellular memory. And so we talk about karma as law, karmic debt as a wound, karmic patterns as ancestral loops, and the karmic archetypes, which part of what we're talking about here tonight, as your soul's purpose, part of why your soul came here. And we do that, we talk about and we give techniques and frameworks for ancestral veneration, because I believe everyone has to work with their ancestors, I don't care what your racial construct is. We all have to do ancestral veneration. You ain't get here without having ancestors. You ain't get here without some great grandparents, some great 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 grandparents, and some other folks that came for generations in order to birth you. You ain't get here without that. So ancestral veneration is a part of the process. We also look at embodied personal and communal rituals, how we can work together in these cohorts, in these pods to help each other, to learn from each other, to understand, oh, you have that karmic archetype, so do I. How is that working for you? This is what I've seen. This is how I've experienced it. And actually, beyond the course, be able to go forward and work with either those who have similar karmic archetypes as you, or to have kind of a cross-functional team and work with folks who have different karmic archetypes. The point is that you start to understand that and have this sacred accountability to do what you came here to do. Hopefully y'all good with me cussing, because I do be cussing. I was about to cuss then, but it is what it is. So that idea of sacred accountability, being able to do what you came here to do because we need it. Look at what's happening. We are in a shit show. Depression, anxiety, all of the potential impact of living in uncertainty in this world is all upon us. And there's a reason why we all here now. I always say, I know I damn chose to be here because what was it? In 2017 in the hospital, I died 3 times. I chose to come back. I fought to come back. I've had more surgery since then. I fought to be here. My soul was like, nah, not today. My ancestors was like, nah, not today. And I suspect many, many, many of y'all are here for a purpose as well. Ain't no suspect. You here, so you here for a purpose. The question is, are you going to fulfill that purpose? Are you going to remember your soul's assignment and get her done? Look at what's happening. I don't care how small you think it is. You are here for a purpose. That's how important that you are, because you could have chosen to come here and like another 50 years when all of the shit show is done and things have changed, or you could have come in a time period before it got this bad, but you're here now. We need you here. And it's all about, the course is all about transmuting pain to power and becoming the medicine that your lineage intended for you to be. I know my people was like, listen, we ain't birth no punk people, so you need to do what you got to do. My girl Mystic Storm, I know she's she's on TikTok and she's on YouTube, but I think I was just watching her earlier on here on TikTok. She told me, I feel like you just said, fuck it, give it all to me. So I took all the karmic debts from all the lineages in my blood and said, I'm gonna work that shit out. And I think she probably right, because when I look at all the things, it's all there. But the point is to become that medicine. They gave it to me. It wasn't punishment at all. And it wasn't just to go through things. It was so that I could master some of these things and then be able to share it. And ultimately, the purpose is to embody your soul's contract and do that shit. Like, there is no, I'm going to just wait or I'm going to get the bag. The bag does not matter if you didn't do what you came on this planet to do for humanity. And to be clear, your soul contract, your soul's assignment always has something to do with humanity as a whole. And you get rewarded along the way with the bag, with the boo, with the house, with the car, because those are just byproducts. The real win is when you do what you came here to do. When you know your soul's assignment and you walk that shit. That's what we're talking about. So there's a link in the chat on YouTube. There is, I don't think I put a link on, I'll put a link somewhere on my TikTok, but, or just DM me and I'll send it to you on TikTok. On YouTube, there's a pinned comment where you can get the link to go sign up for a vibe check call, because that's how I'm doing it. You sign up, we're going to talk for about 20 minutes, see if we vibe, see if this is for you, and talk about, how we're going to move forward. And one of the things we'll talk about is how I'm going to do the group. So if there's enough white women and Black women who want to do this, I will have 2 separate groups, because while there are mirrors of each other, I am not going to have Black women have to be in a space with white women, even though these may be quote unquote safe white women, because I would not deal with anybody who wasn't. There's enough trauma there where we just need our own spaces and we need to have those conversations separately. And then, if the groups want to come together at some point, we can do that. But that's part of what I'm going to talk with each individual woman about, or femme, because I'm not even trying to police you on your gender identification. That's what I'm going to talk to each person about before we move forward and as we go into it. So vibe check call, DM me on TikTok. There's a pinned comment on YouTube. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. And my schedule is open. My calendar is open right now. And I'm going to close it on Sunday night at the end of the series. So book your time before Saturday night. I'm sorry, Saturday night. The meeting, our conversation will be next week because I'm only trying to do one thing at a time. But you need to book it now so that we can talk next week and you'll be in there like swimwear. I just showed all of my age with that. All right, so let's keep it moving and talk about when desire and visibility feel dangerous and how we can create nervous system safety. We've talked a little bit about nervous system safety, but for Black women, there's been this ancestral memory of punishment. There's an epigenetic echo. There's an epigenetic memory within us. And epigenetics is a scientifically proven, y'all hear me, I talk about this all the time because some people need to understand it. There's a science to this. It's not just spiritual, even though spirituality and science are like the same coin. But epigenetics is when a people have been through trauma for generations, it changes the expression of your DNA and gets passed down to the descendants. So we carry within us the trauma from our people being enslaved. We carry within us the trauma of being great. I hate that I even got to say it like that for these algorithms or whatever, but we carry the trauma of that. We carry the trauma of the forced labor, the stolen freedom. We carry the trauma of being terrorized literally for and I'm going to count it as 500 years because the slave trade was going to Brazil 100 years before it came to the US. And some of them are our cousins as well. And so having that within our bodies, when sexual agency, beauty, or ambition, any of that could lead to death. Just being pretty could lead to death. Or shit, not being pretty could lead to death. Like anything, breathing too hard could lead to death. This whole idea around desire, whether it's for pleasure, wealth, or leadership, can trigger a stay small reflex, to shrink reflex. I know growing up, I had nice sized tatas. I always kind of did like this to shrink them, to not have them front and center versus straight back. I still got to work on my posture now from that. And that's just one example of that stay small reflex. It shows up in how we talk, how we move, sometimes making choices to dress in ways that minimize us. And then there's the modern micro threats. We get harassed on lines, we get retaliated in the workplace, and then hypersexualized in a way that reinforces for us that visibility is dangerous. All of that impacts us. And for white women, um, there's this memory, cellular memory of restriction and compliance. White women, many come from lineages where survival depended on obedience to the patriarchal system. For many white women, survival dependent on obedience to patriarchy. To undo that takes some work. No longer about being the good daughter or the good wife. How many of us have heard that? I mean, that's not even specific to white women, but it's something that was drilled into them, I think, in different ways than us. And it was all about, to be a woman was all about maintaining the family status and bringing comfort to men. Child. And then the generations of witch trials and public shaming. I mean, the Scarlet Letter, I know y'all read that in high school. I mean, and it's, what is it, a show now too? Those were real things. Women were property. Women got shamed, stoned, and in some cases unalived for simply having desire or being desirable. It's a powerful blueprint. And it didn't even erase women's rights. It made women's rights something difficult to achieve. But don't get what I'm talking about confused with feminism. Look up the word womanism. Womanism is really what we're talking about. Who was it? Alice Walker. She said, womanism is to feminism as purple is to lavender. So think about that. The feminist movement was not for all women. It was not for Black women. It wasn't for women of color. So I want you to just understand that. And this whole idea of women's rights, and it was about being outspoken, too sensual, too anything, and then you were cast out, disowned, pushed out of the family. And this whole idea of purity and perfection standards that reward white women for being quote unquote polished, that rewards them for kind of toeing the line and staying within and upholding patriarchy, which, to be clear, patriarchy equals white men. Black men and other men of other cultures, they benefit from it to some degree, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about white men. I don't get too much into the whole layers of men thing because I'm about the ladies, I'm about the women and us getting our empowerment and doing the work for the divine feminine. Um, so whenever they speak boldly, they get some retaliation or social media pile on and probably hear some things in their own families that aren't particularly beneficial. So what do we do? I already talked about breath work, those deep breaths, those deep grounding breaths. I have videos on my YouTube channel um, that go anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes of different breathwork techniques, and there are more that will come. Those breathwork techniques and videos, and you can just audio, you don't have to watch it, are connected to my Remember Who the Fuck You Are activity book. There are 7 aspects or themes or lanes in that activity book. And so there's 7 different sets of meditations and visualizations that I have recorded. Not all of them are up yet, but the point is, if you need some guidance around meditation and visualization, something that you can tap into, those are there. I'm also going to be posting some shorter ones that you can just get in a 3-minute hit, kind of calm you down before you're ready to knock somebody out. But then there's also tapping. I don't know if you know much about that. We talk about it. Oh, I'm tapping on the mic. We talk about that in the course. You can hum, even do slow movements to signal to your body, I'm safe now. Sometimes if I'm in a situation, I just start doing like this. It's like, no, we don't have to grip. I don't have to get tight. And especially deep breaths when there's something traumatic happening and releasing it helps it not to stick around. And so you can create a ritual before you arrive into a public moment. Light a candle, call on your ancestors. That's what I did before I came online. I called on my ancestors. I didn't have a candle with me. I didn't know they were going to walk quite so much, but we did some things. Gave some offerings and called them in, and I didn't come live until they said yes. These are all important things to ground yourself and to call in your spiritual or energetic reinforcements. And then these small little acts of expression that you choose. Wear a bright color, uh, create some art and post it. Say yes to your own pleasure. Say yes to things that bring you joy for no other reason except that it brings you joy, as long as it's not doing harm to somebody else, because then that's just more in the karmic debt. But these are all of the grounding practices to help your body be calm and to know to feel and be desired and to desire something is okay. And the final discussion point for tonight is why collective freedom is so important. Why collective freedom is requires personal sovereignty first. So it's the point that in order before you can be in alliance with someone else to fight for freedom, you have to feel free within yourself, or as it'll boil down to not knowing what your yeses and nos are. It'll boil down to moving out of a place of depletion, which cannot end up in a good place for all of us. So you'll either create more hierarchy or you'll be on burnout. And the other reason why it's important, especially in this case for white women, is that uh, you can be over direct. So I had posted something on TikTok, mm, talking to white women or non-black women. And in the comments, somebody said, I'd love for you to do a video on X, Y, and Z. Really? You give me an assignment? Okay. I didn't even respond to that comment. And it may have felt like, oh, I'm just offering a suggestion, but read the room, honey. Read the room. You giving me more assignments. You giving me labor. I don't need you to give me assignment. I get my assignments from my ancestors. But this whole rescue pattern, we need you to rescue yourself first. We need you to do the work to free your own lineage and your ancestral mothers who did not want to be in that position. Looks like this is, I'm sorry, TikTok making me verify. I don't know why. Okay. That's what it do? What did it think I was not here because I wasn't responding to stuff? Child, I'm gonna have to, again, anybody want to give Auntie a TikTok live tutorial? Holla at me. Now, finishing this up, this whole why freedom, collective freedom requires personal sovereignty. So for white women, it's that rescue pattern. So for Black women or descendants of oppressed women, it's um, this tendency to overgive. And then with the descendants of oppressors, it's this tendency to overdirect, which I just spoke to. So owning your own inner work, whether it's therapy, shadow work, spiritual practice, whatever it is, that has to come first. You cannot go out in the world talking about I'm gonna fix everybody else and you broke as fuck. And I don't mean broke as in money. I mean broken as in you got a lot of stuff internally that you haven't worked out and you spiritually bypassing, trying to work it out on other people. So the self freedom, the personal freedom has to come first. And then there's this idea around financial stability and emotional regulation that so that you can contribute without harming yourself. Sovereign people give from overflow, not obligation. Don't nobody want to show up to do something because they think they're supposed to do it and not actually feel like that it's something for them to do. And the other reason why you want to bring your own personal freedom is that when every member of a group, of organization, of a committee, whatever it is, whatever the gathering is about, when each person can stand firmly in their gifts, in their soul's assignment, in their purpose, and work to master their karmic lessons so that they can stand as the archetype to help others, there is nothing that group can't accomplish. There's nothing that group can't get done. And you have all of these different strategies to tap into. The sacred builder, the sacred liberator, the sacred redeemer, the sacred leader. When everyone is standing strong in who the fuck they are, the group is that much more stronger. But you got to do your own work first. And then there's that continuity. Honoring your lineage is medicine. Honoring your people is medicine, whether it's storytelling, healing arts, land stewardship. Recognizing and honoring the people you came from is medicine. And honoring can also mean undoing the harm that they did, actively working to undo the harm that they did. And we talk more about this in the course, but the reality is, and the same is true no matter your racial construct, we have ancestors that are benevolent, that are of light, that want to support us and humanity. And we have ancestors that, I'll say it like I heard it from spirit. We got ancestors that was on some bullshit when they was here and they still are. Learning to recognize them, learning what and how to move is important because the ones that was on some bullshit will try to get work done through you as well. But you're not here for that. You're here to create something different. And that sovereignty connects you to these ancestors and your descendants. That true liberation that is the birthright for humanity. Liberation and joy. It's not pursuit of happiness. It's you have the right to pursue happiness, but it's your birthright to experience joy. It's very different things. Again, we go into that. So that's the end of our 5 points. Take a moment with me to take a couple of deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. Let's begin. And we'll do 1 and 2. And before we do the third one, I want to make sure that when you inhale, you let everything expand. Let air fill your lungs, fill your belly, fill your lungs backwards and forwards. Your lungs can actually expand towards your back. Your ribs can very tinily expand. Expand everything. Think of yourself like a balloon. And when you exhale, pull your stomach up. Let that diaphragm come up. Pull your stomach in and up and push out all that old stagnant air. Push out all of the tension. See and feel it coming from every cell deep within your body and coming out with the breath, releasing what no longer serves you. Yes, yes? All right, let's do it. Let's inhale and exhale. And wiggle your shoulders, wiggle your fingers. We went through a lot of information pretty quickly, but I'm committed to not being on here much longer than an hour, and we didn't hit the hour. Yes, we have. And I'm thankful. I'm so thankful that for all of y'all who joined live on YouTube and on TikTok. I didn't think I was going to stick around the whole time, but I did. If you are interested in the Your Soul Knows the Assignment, I encourage you to um what do I encourage you to do? I encourage you to if you're on YouTube, click the link, schedule your vibe check call. If you're on TikTok, DM me so I can give you the link so you can schedule your vibe check call. And again, this is for Black women descendant from our African ancestors, enslaved African ancestors, oppressed African ancestors, colonized African ancestors. And it's also for white or non-Black women descended from those who were the enslavers, those who were the colonizers, and who now still benefit from the safety, the false safety of the patriarchy, but are now seeing that shit ain't safe for nobody. And it's time to do some things differently. So get at me, click the link, schedule your call. And as always, thank you so much for coming and for being here with me. I'll be back tomorrow. I don't know if I'm gonna do the TikTok thing again. We'll see. I'll see if I can figure it out between now and then to be more engaged. And the same here on YouTube. I'll be back 7 p.m. Um, Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. And tomorrow we're talking about the Sacred Redeemer. Whew. That's my main path. So I'm going to have some things to say about that. And it's also one of the most difficult karmic paths. And I don't say that just because it's mine. Do your research. 16:7. It's one of the most difficult, insidious paths. But your girl's still here. So we're working through it. And we're going to talk about that. And then on Friday, it's Sacred Leader. And then Saturday, we are going to come together and do the great unbinding. We'll do some meditation, some ritual, so that we can release the karmic wounds and keep the wisdom so that we can walk our paths with clarity and integrity. Yes, 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 yes. And with that, I thank you so much. I send you love and light. And as always, take good care of you because you're the only one who can. So I'm gonna end it over here on YouTube. Thank you, because I know how to do that. And then I'm gonna end it on TikTok as soon as I figure out